Good morning, everybody. My name is Amy, and I am an alcoholic. And I have had a spiritual awakening as a result of doing these steps out of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous with the guidance of several step study sponsors that did the work before me and the loving grace of God in my life. I'm still wrapping up some formal amends, almost done with those. And I'm practicing steps 10, 11, and 12 to the best of my willingness, not necessarily to the best of my ability every day, because my ability exceeds my willingness some days, and that's the honest truth. But I'm grateful to be here. Thank you. So good to be back at this meeting. As many of you know, I moved away from here about a year and a half ago, and I live in Hartford. So it was a joy to get up at the crack of dawn this morning, and then truly it was. It's funny, but it really was. I looked forward to it, and in fact, I woke up even before the alarm went off, which I don't do on a work day, I can assure you. So it's wow. I'm a little overwhelmed, so I'm just going to take 1 minute here. Okay. So my experience, strength, and hope. Well. I was walking down the yellow brick road. No, I came into Alcoholics Anonymous several 24 hours ago, and I'm not going to give you a big drunk log. Obviously, I wasn't having a good time. I was young. I was 24 when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and that was a long time ago, I can assure you. I'd love to say, by the grace of God, I was separated from alcohol for the last time then, and that was in 1987. I relapsed on another substance 6 years into that sobriety, and by the grace of God, I was brought back into Alcoholics Anonymous. And that was a little over 20 years ago. So why am I saying this? I'm saying this because, first of all, this program works. And, I had to get physically sober. I had to put down all of the substances because the substances were my first antidote to my alcoholism. They were my first means of finding a psychic change that I intuitively knew I needed. I didn't like how I felt inside and how I thought and how I operated, and I had no idea what all that meant or what all that was. I just knew I couldn't take it finally, and I needed something for relief. So I turned to alcohol, and really, anything else. Alcohol was my main drug of choice. But so I got sober when I was 24, and I was 12 stepped in by a brother at the time who was getting sober. And just so you know, for anybody maybe who is new or thinking that their circumstances in life are too difficult to get sober, I'm no different than a lot of people in this room, but I can only speak from my experience. I was a single mom. I had 3 little girls. I was 24. I'd already been married for 5.5 years because of a teenage pregnancy due to alcoholism. I had had 4 babies in 5 years. I had 3 little girls. I was single parenting. I became a single mom at 23, and I was living in a trailer with no car and no job, and I was a full-blown alcoholic at 23 with 3 little girls that were 1, 3, and 5 in my care full time. And I had totaled my car in a blackout with those little girls in it. I was a mess. But I was in complete denial about my life. Everything was your fault, God's fault, everybody else's fault. I had an amazing ability to exonerate myself from all responsibility for any of the circumstances in my life. And I was just a complete mess. I did not come in here still thinking I had a problem. I came in here basically to get a lot of people off my back at the time. Like, maybe I lived in New Hampshire. It was like, maybe I won't be in the local Gazette for a couple of weeks. That would probably be nice. My parents would probably appreciate that because they lived locally and I was making quite a name for myself. Again, just to back up, by that point in time, I think about it now, and I was 24 when I got sober. That's, to me, at this stage, looking back, I was a baby. And I was a baby with babies, and I was a full-blown alcoholic, and I had already, alcohol and my alcoholism had already stolen so much from me at that point in my life that it's stunning, actually, to me when I look at it. It tells me in this book, it talks about the rapacious creditor and all the ways that this disease steals from me, and all the ways that it alters my life, and yet a lot of the ways my life was altered had very much to do with what we read about today, was fear, because that's really at the root of what has driven me and drives me to this day without God in my life, is fear, and I never knew that. It had stolen a career, a dancing career. It had stolen all kinds of things from me. But I came into Alcoholics Anonymous anyways at 24, and I don't know what I heard. I'm not one of those people that can tell you, oh, I heard this amazing woman at my first meeting and I saw the light and I just knew, and I didn't. I left my first meeting and I went to my local watering hole and I told all my buddies I had just joined AA, and everybody gave up a big cheer and we all had drinks to celebrate. And that made perfect sense to me. That made perfect sense to me. I didn't seem the least bit odd. I didn't feel any twinge of, ooh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Nothing. And that's just where I was at. But I knew I had heard something that night that really pissed me off, because that was one of my main emotions, was anger. And that was that there was a way out, that I didn't have to keep living like I was. As much as I wanted to continue to try to play the victim, that there really was a way that this could all start to change, but I needed to do something that I didn't want to do, and that is take responsibility. I'm a lazy alcoholic who wants to blame everything on everybody else. I don't want to have to work for anything either. So the idea that, if I could come in and just attach myself like a barnacle to you and suck the life out of you and get whatever I need off of you until you don't serve me any longer, and then I find someone else, that's fine with me. But the idea that I might have to actually put some effort into my own life really didn't leave I didn't like that. But, the truth of the matter is that I continued to go to meetings and go to the bar, and God was good, and I got sober. And, I was definitely not the poster girl for AA. Although if you'd asked me at the time, I would have told you I thought I was. I mean, I was so twisted up. I would literally start dressing for the 8 p.m. meeting at noon. Because have to have the right outfit. Because, see, in my mind, I wasn't drinking. Once I decided to really get sober and go with AA, I was like, okay, well, that's all done. I was like, I'm good. I had no idea, none, about what it meant, what I was admitting to. I was saying I was an alcoholic, and I truly believed it began and ended with the bottle. I thought that was it, and now that that wasn't an issue in my life, I was pretty much all set. The steps, I thought they were like extra credit on a test. Remember when you were a kid, you could get 100, but if you did the extra question, you could get 102. So I thought like being sober was my 100. And then for all you brown nosers, you did the steps and got 102, but I was cool with 100. I was good with just being 100. So, and that was really like that was truly my attitude. Like I just, I loved AA. I believed what I heard at meetings. I loved the fellowship. It was clearly doing, a miracle was happening because I wasn't drinking. And I went from being somebody who was still defending her right to drink after totaling a car with her children in it to now I'm not drinking. That's miraculous. And I was doing nothing else really except showing up. But I really believed that, I was a pretty nice girl from a pretty decent family, and that was somehow my birthright, that I was okay. And, and that really was just a matter of hanging back in meetings long enough till Prince Charming came along, because the promises told me I was going to lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in my fellows. And I had certainly done that, so I knew the promises were coming true. So I really thought that it was now up to me to just, put a life together for myself. So, all this, where's all this leading? All this is leading to the fact that I am a mental case. I was searching in Alcoholics Anonymous. Here's the deal. I had sobriety down. Like, I got the I can't drink part. I got the, I'm powerless over alcohol part. God was good. I got that. I didn't get any of the rest of it. I didn't get any of the rest of it because I spent the next, long time, a lot of 24 hours, a lot of anniversaries came and went, and I knew I was powerless over alcohol, but other than that, I had no idea my life was unmanageable. I thought that it was up to me to kind of put the pieces together now. So I was searching out here. If I could find the right guy, the right car, the right shoes, the right house, the right job, and I would get like 2 of 3 pieces put in place, and I'd be like, okay, stay right there. And I'm just gonna go over here for 1 second, and I would like turn and try to put that piece there, and somebody would move and screw it all up, and it was always just, everything was just, I was always so close in my mind to just finally having the life I wanted, the life I deserved, and but it was all out here. Meanwhile, I wasn't doing any work on myself. And this whole, it's an inside job and all that, I was like, maybe for you, but not for me. I just drink too much, and that's not been a problem now for quite a while. So, other than that, I'm pretty good. No big surprise that I picked up any substance. I'm grateful it wasn't alcohol, because I don't know where that would have led me, because that truly is my drug of choice. It was another substance, but the bottom line is that I got to a point after 6 years where I was in another jackpot, with another relationship, and not working any kind of solution in my life, although I was sober. And, and I picked up a substance because I needed relief. And, and God was good. He brought me back into Alcoholics Anonymous. And, and I was able to begin again. And I'd love to say that was the turning point where I saw the light. But the truth of the matter is I went back to very much doing what I had been doing before, which is going to meetings, being a sober woman in Alcoholics Anonymous, carrying what I thought was the message. But as I understand it today, it tells me in step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of the previous 11, which I hadn't done. I don't know what I was talking about, but it certainly wasn't, a message of recovery. So, but, all that being said, I thought I was doing the deal. But the truth of the matter is that 9 more years went by after my relapse and coming back into AA. And I was living in Keene, New Hampshire, in a relationship. Because, it talks in here about, in previous chapters to this, switching from scotch to brandy and whatever. So once the alcohol was out of my life, I just started doing that with other substances in my life. I switched from men to women, women to men, houses to apartments, low heels to high heels, V-necks to turtlenecks. I mean, I was doing the very same thing that it talks about with alcohol, only I was just doing it with other things in my life. Because I was sure if I could just find the right combo plate, rice and ribs or whatever, it was like it would all come together for me. It never occurred to me that it was like I really needed to do something about me. So 9 more years of this kind of mentality in Alcoholics Anonymous, and man, I was suffering because, again, the substance was gone, and I was back to the original problem, which is bleh. So I'm driving around Keene, I'm like passively suicidal at 9 years sober for the second time around, and and my partner at the time, honestly, she found Big Book Step Study. It was not really prevalent in Keene at the time. There was 1 or 2 people that had been coming to Leominster to, and gone through the process, but we really didn't have an active meeting up there. And, and I was in another relationship that was, not healthy. Why? Because I was in it. And she was starting to realize that, things were slightly askew in our life, and we had taken each other hostage, and we both had significant amount of sobriety, and she was actually like getting a solution, and honestly, I can't even tell you my motive for coming into Big Book Step Study was true, but it was what it was, and it got me here. And the bottom line is, I was like, oh no, you will not get healthier than me. No, we'll have none of that. We will have none of that. So, it was like, whatever she's doing, I'm doing too, because she's not getting ahead of me. So, and honestly, that was my motivation for coming into Big Book Step Study. And, whatever gets you here. So where did I go from there? So I got a sponsor up in Keene who had been through the process, and, and I embarked on this unbelievable journey that would transition me from, here's the pivotal moment, transition me from sobriety into recovery. And I used to think that those two words were synonymous and interchangeable, but I found out once I started living in the solution and I found the program of recovery in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I realized the difference between being sober, which in itself is miraculous and is a gift from my higher power, and meetings in Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a powerful program, and I have a loving God that kept me sober in spite of my lack of efforts for a long, long time. But I was not availing myself of the life that this program offers me, and it's an incredible life. So I was given directions right off the bat, given directions. Don't like that. I don't like to be given directions. I don't like to be given directions, even if it's, pull the string on your parachute. It's like, yeah, well, maybe. I might if I feel like it, okay? Maybe on the way down I'll pull it, but I'm not going to make any promises. So, that's just how I am with directions. But I was told to open the book, which I had never, at that point I had 6 years, then 9 more years. I had, basically a combined 15 years of sobriety. I had a book that I had received in 1987 that looked like I had just bought it at Barnes & Noble's 15 years later, except for the 3 inches of dust on it. And I had never opened the front of it at any Big Book meetings I had ever been to prior to that. And this is nobody's fault, this is just the way it was. I had only ever read stories out of the back, which are wonderful, and they're there for a purpose. And, and I loved going to those meetings because that's where the action is in these stories in the back here. This is where I want to talk because, I'm not working a solution. So all I got is death, divorce, multiple last names, marriages, and I can talk about that at those meetings because these stories have all kinds of drama in them. So that appealed to me. But the idea of opening up where the directions are and actually doing some work did not appeal to me, even though I was slowly dying in sobriety. But God was good again. And so I read, and I was told to start reading. And I was told to read the first 63 and a half pages. She told me where to stop. I was given the directions to underline words that I didn't fully understand the meaning of, and have a dictionary ready and look up the definitions. Highly insulted by that. Again, someone else who does not recognize who I am. So frustrating. But I did it. Highlight anything that really spoke to me, or that really stuck out to me, and then call her when I was done, and we were going to read it all over again. That seemed very redundant. I did not understand. Well, if I've just read it, why do we have to? Always, I'm dying and I'm still challenging. I'm dying and I'm still. I'm dying. I'm asking you to help me, and then I'm going to tell you how to help me. Because if I already knew, I probably would have helped myself. So anyways, I know you get it. So, and the reading, if you are considering this work, or you've been given that direction and you're right in the middle of that phase of this process, the reading with a sponsor, and I find this over and over again as I work with women today, the reading with someone else brings it to life. And the little 1 or 2 word definitions of words that an incredibly gifted, intelligent woman like myself even didn't know the definitions of, It does. It just takes it from, from like black and white and puts it into Technicolor. It just brings it alive. And so we read and we talked, and we took a formal step one, and and I was introduced to myself for the first time as an alcoholic. I was introduced to who I had been admitting to be for all these thousands at that point of meetings. I had no idea what my disease entailed, other than I could not drink and drug in safety. I had no idea. I had never heard anything about the phenomenon of craving or that I had an allergy. So this was like unbelievable news to me. We took a formal third step on our knees. She asked me not if, but when I completed this work, would I be willing to work with other women? And, honestly, I had no idea what I was agreeing to. I just really wanted to get on with things at that point, because I got places to go and things to do. So could we just speed past this? So I was like, yeah, sure, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, probably not, but sure. All I can tell you is, the transformation is miraculous when you do this work. So we said the third step prayer, and then I was given the directions to start my fourth step. I had a 5-subject notebook, I had a black pen, and I did the first part, which I know you talked about last week, the resentments, the turnarounds, the causes and effects. And then we got to this part, which is the fear. And, I have always fancied myself as, as a fairly fearless person. One of the many things I've lied to myself about. Because when I made my list of fears, I realized pretty quickly how paralyzing this disease is, and why someone like myself would possibly need something to take them out of that. I was afraid. My nature is to be afraid of everything. I'm afraid of being loved, and I'm afraid of not being loved. There's a little conundrum. I'm afraid of success and failure. I'm afraid of losing what I have and not getting what I want. And the list just went on and on and on and on, and they were polar opposites, mirror images of one another. So I was asked to make a list. We read through this part of the step, and I was asked to make a list of my fears and do what I had been told to do with the writing that preceded this, which was get on my knees, say the third step prayer, obviously, invite God in. Because this is not supposed to be my creation, my fourth step. It was supposed to be something that I did in concert with my higher power, who I was getting to know while I was doing this. So I made my list, and then, I love what it says in here. It's an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence was shot through with it. It set in motion trains of circumstances which brought us misfortune. Here's the kicker. We felt we didn't deserve. Story of my life. I'm the victim. I'm the victim. I'm the consummate victim. And yet, when I did this work with a sponsor and with God, I was able to see just what this meant, an evil and corroding thread. Fear is still an evil and corroding thread in my life. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's not the case. My default setting as an alcoholic is that fear is an evil and corroding thread in my life. I could sit here in a heartbeat and get myself worked into a complete lather over all kinds of things pretty immediately if I really choose to go there today. And there's circumstances that come down the pike that throw me into that at times. The difference today is that I have a higher power. I have a God in my life that I have an active relationship with. It's not a 911 or a Santa Claus God anymore that I call upon in a jackpot. I have an ongoing dialogue with my higher power. So it's my higher power is here and here all the time. So I can much more easily take an action that's going to get me out of that. But make no mistake, it's still an evil and corroding thread if I allow it to be without God in my life. And that's the difference today, is that I have a spiritual solution because of this work. Over on the next page, it says, we reviewed our fears thoroughly. We put them on paper, even though we had no resentment in connection with them. And that was true. I didn't necessarily have any resentment in connection with my fears. But when I really stopped and really sat with God, I probably had at least 75 to 100 fears on my list. And very few of them were, the obvious, creepy bugs and stuff like that, although I did put that stuff down too. But, fear of dying, fear of death, fear of living and fear of dying. Wow. Okay, where do you go from there? Talk about a rock and a hard place. But this I always relate to in here when it says self-reliance was good as far as it went, but it didn't go far enough. And it says, when it was cocky, it made us worse. And that's my experience, is that I have spent most of my life with a lot of false bravado, a lot of people, giving forth this, I'm confident, I've got this, I can handle this, I'm all over when really the truth of the matter is that I am scared to death. I am that scared little girl, still looking around, wanting to take everybody's emotional temperature to see how I should be and who I should be and what I should say and what I should do. I mean, that little girl is still in there, and most of that is just from being an alcoholic, and then there's a little dose of, my upbringing, my childhood and circumstances that just heightened that. Those things didn't make me an alcoholic, but they certainly ratcheted up a lot of what I was naturally feeling anyways. So then it tells me perhaps there is a better way. We think so, for we're now on a different basis, the basis of trusting and relying upon God. And I can honestly say that at this point in the writing, I was definitely starting to be on a different basis, with God. I was starting to see the hand of God working in my life because I was taking action. And it tells me faith without works is dead. So, I can talk about this, I can recite it chapter and verse all I want, but if I'm not actively working a spiritual solution in my life and taking the action, then it's really ultimately going to be fruitless for me. And I was starting to see the difference. I was starting to benefit from this work, from a God in my life, from my willingness to take direction and my willingness to do the legwork. It tells me I'm now in the world to play the role he assigns, and just to the extent that I do that I do as I think he would have me do and humbly rely on him, does he enable me to match calamity with serenity. That's a huge promise. That's a huge promise in there. And, I can tell you that has come true. I don't think at the juncture that I was at when I was actually doing this writing that I necessarily was able to really take that in or see that happening in my life. But I can honestly tell you that today that is a promise that has come true in my life from doing this work. The last paragraph I love, where it talks about courage. Faith means courage, and all men of faith have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be at once we commence to outgrow fear. And I love that fear prayer. I say it all the time. There's days when I feel like I should just have it tattooed somewhere right about here. So I can just kind of go like that. But that is a very powerful passage for me. I do feel like I have developed courage from doing this work. To me, courage conjures up an idea of, a fireman running into a burning building. And I'm sure he'd probably rather not do that, but it's the right thing to do, and he does it. because it's the right thing to do. And very often that's what I am called upon to do in my life, is the next right thing according to what I believe God would have me do. And because of this work, I have the ability now to trust and rely that I do have a God in my life that is guiding me. And that although things don't always go the way I want them to go, or I might be in fear about something, I can turn to that God, I can call my sponsor, I can do things that I know, I can pray, say the fear prayer, and just take the next right action. And that although circumstances may not always work out the way I want them to, I'm going to be okay. So, I've had these last few months have produced a tremendous amount of fear for me. A tremendous example of God working in my life in a way that I could never have accepted or just gone with in the past. And this is a direct result of this work. I moved to Hartford for, here's a big shocker, a relationship. I'm growing. I didn't marry this one, so I'm learning. So I go to Hartford, I think, for this particular reason. Guess what? It didn't work out, okay? It didn't work out in a very hurtful way. And I'm in Hartford now, and I walked away from a fully intact life up here, and I made those decisions. I have so many amazing people in my life that I would not have in my life in Hartford. I have a sponsee in Hartford. I have brought Big Book Step Study very much into Hartford because it's not big down there. And I have a dear friend I've made in a short period of time who is very, very ill and dying, who I am being able to be a tremendous, tremendous support to. God had plans for me in Hartford. I thought they were this. I was saying to someone earlier today, I sailed my ship for Hartford because I felt directed by God to do that, and I really felt like that was God's will for me, and I thought it was because this was where, this was it. This was it. This was the one. Never said that before. So I sailed towards this island, and what this work has given me the ability to do, and this fear prayer, and just this process, and the ability to develop a relationship with a God in my life, it's given me the ability to adjust my sails when they need to be adjusted and say, okay, I thought I was supposed to be sailing towards this island, but he's got me going to this cluster of islands over here, kind of in that same neck of the woods, And, that may sound really kind of like a silly analogy, but my point is that I used to think I was so groovy and flexible and all of that, and the truth of the matter is I was one of the most inflexible, fear-based people. Like, it had to be like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and don't throw me any curveballs because, I have to be in control. And I tried to dress it up in this groovy, I'll just go with the flow package, but that was a bunch of shit. I needed everything to be in order for me, or I was like freaking out, but I'm going to put my lipstick on and just freak out to myself, and hopefully nobody notices that I'm freaking out, and, and I was always trusting and relying on myself to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out with this broken brain that I didn't know I had. I thought I just drank like a pig and I couldn't drink. I didn't know I had a disease that was spiritual, physical, mental. I didn't know I had a spiritual malady. I didn't know any of this until I opened up the front of this book and I was willing to take some direction and shut my mouth and, and go to the source. This is it. This book was written for a girl like me. A girl like me should not have the life I have today. Believe me. I have an amazing life today. Is it the life I envisioned? Absolutely not. Is it the life I always want? Absolutely not. Is it a fabulous life? It absolutely is. This morning, it wasn't that I had to. I was allowed to get up this morning, drive my car to Worcester, see amazing friends, people I love, be here, talk about the most important thing in my life, my God, and this program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and then leave here and go babysit my precious 5-year-old grandson in New Hampshire for the day and overnight tonight and be beat to shit by this time tomorrow. And I could not be happier about it. It's simple, it's quiet, there's not a lot of hoopla. My name's not in lights, I didn't make it to Broadway, I don't have any big bling on my fingers. It's all good. It's all good. And, I feel like I've been all over the place, and forgive me if I have, but, all I can tell you is that this fear, this part of the fourth step was for me a huge and very revealing piece, to be asked to look at, when did I first feel this fear? What did I do to manage this fear? How have I kept this fear alive in my life? To answer these questions with each fear and really look at, like I did with the turnarounds, like I would ultimately end up doing with the sex portion of the fourth step, to really look at how do these fears, what kind of masks do they wear? Because they don't just knock on the door and go, "Hi, I'm insecurity. Hi, I'm terror." They dress up as, cute little ideas, and, "Oh, I have a plan," and, they come with different masks and disguises, and, they don't always look like fear to me. So I needed to get very familiar with them and be able, with God's grace and the guidance of more than one sponsor, because I revisited this with a second sponsor. I needed to get familiar with, what do they look like? How do they play out in my life? All the different ways that they permeate my life. And go, "Oh, wow, I didn't know I made that decision out of fear. Well, shit, yeah, I can see why that didn't work out." But I can't do this by myself. So anyways, I don't know if I've made a lot of sense. I always make sense to myself, so I've gotten a lot out of this. I don't know about you. Anyways, all I can tell you is I have become someone who used to annoy the hell out of me in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am passionate about this, if you can't tell. It has saved my life. It saves my life on a daily basis, because I am the same whack job I ever was. The difference today is I have a spiritual solution in my life that I tap into the first thing every morning. I don't care what's going on. I roll out of bed and onto my knees. And before I even do that, I am at the point in my recovery now where I can actually invoke my higher power's help before I even get that far. Because I have the same kooky brain that I wrote about in like 4 or 5 subject notebooks. I got that same brain going on today, and left to my own devices, I default right back to that overnight, and that's what I wake up with in the morning. And I have to have God in my life. So if you're just checking us out, if you didn't hear anything that you could relate to today, get to another meeting, please. If you're in the process, keep going. It does end. All I can tell you is, people like me used to really make me want to stick my finger down my throat and gag myself in meetings, and I've become one of them, and it's not to be a show-off, and I don't think I'm better than anybody else. This saved my life. So if something saves my life, you can bet your ass I'm going to be passionate about it, and I'm going to want to tell other people that are suffering from the same thing all about it. This is where it's at, folks. Thanks.